Wow, guys, it seems like Norway is up to save the situation for Ukraine entirely. Norway may pledge 100 billion euros from its fund to unblock the transfer of frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. Well, actually, Norway has the biggest sovereign wealth fund. In 2017, it reached $1 trillion, and now it's 1.8 trillion. Some sources say 1.7, but soon it's gonna reach 2 trillion. And it looks like it is definitely bigger than in any other country. By the way, Russia also has this national wealth fund, which is mainly now depleted. But Russia also has lots of the funds in European banks which were blocked at the very beginning of the war, and the aim is to confiscate those and send for the military support of Ukraine. But you know this drama between European Commission and Belgium authorities who continue to block the unfreezing of the funds and sending those to Ukraine. 3 days ago, there was no breakthrough in negotiations over blocked Russian assets. Belgian bureaucrats are saying that the risks for them are too high in case of Russia successful in some sort of the appeal. And it is all happening that the drones are flying over the Belgium air bases, and even United Kingdom sent the forces to protect Belgium after suspected Russian drone incursions. So actually Belgium should be #1 country interested into increasing pressure on Russia with the help of Ukraine, because physically only for Ukraine it is possible to do so right at the front lines. If you want to stop Russia also with their provocations, unblock Russian assets. But no, those bureaucrats, they don't really care. They don't care about Ukrainian people suffering in the front lines and behind the front lines. For them, business as usual, money, those risks are pretty much higher for their own personal wallets. Putin sees this weak reaction and he continued to escalate, especially in Belgium, pressing those bureaucrats, we escalate against you, don't even dare to confiscate our assets, which are mainly located in Belgian banks. And those pussies in the Belgian government, they pretty much obey. But here Norway comes and say, okay, we're gonna spend some of the percentage of our national wealth fund, because it is also interest of Norway, because Norway is the first competitor against Russia for Arctics, so it's their national interest to weaken Russia right now, and they have the idea to guarantee the confiscation of the Russian frozen assets. So in case Russia is successful in international courts, okay, Norway will pay for it with its national fund, but let's confiscate Russian assets at first. So there's the potential deal between three of the sides: European Union, Norway and Belgium. Norway is not a member of EU, but it is a member of NATO. So again, the funds are just a guarantee for military loan for Ukraine. It doesn't mean that they will be paid right away, but it is just in case of the Russia successful in those international courts after years or probably decades of this processing. So if Russia really wins everything, okay, they might take those funds from Norway, not from Brussels. And it is done just to unblock the confiscation of the Russian assets by Brussels right now to send everything of that to Ukraine. As you see now, the situation on the front lines, it requires immediate boost in military support of Ukraine. I already told you about Mirnograd, that supply lines were mainly cut for the settlement and all of those villages in this pocket. The situation is very bad also in Konstantinivka, not as bad as in Mirnograd, but Russians are getting closer to this settlement. Russians are propelling also towards Zaporizhia and Pokrovsk over here. Russians are in Kupiansk, Kharkiv region, so it is understandable that Russia is not willing to stop. Putin wants this war to continue. And Putin knows that Russian army is moving forward, and he thinks that after Russia occupies the entire Donbass, his army has the chance to break through towards Dnipro, towards Kharkiv, maybe even towards Kiev. There is the chance even for that scenario that Russian forces could potentially go from Belarus or from Bryansk once again if Ukrainian defense really struggles. And why it struggles? Well, because not enough military support. Yeah, there are some of the internal issues in Ukrainian army, but if our allies are too late to increase military support of Ukraine, there is pretty much high chance for Russia to conquer the vast part of Ukrainian territory. little by little, and potentially there could be a breakthrough. And as Axios reports, weapon sales to NATO allies stalled by government shutdown. Actually, lots of the things stalled because of the government shutdown in the United States of America. Well, probably in the coming days the shutdown will be lifted, but for now Ukraine is not obtaining the crucial components for its military. Munition for HIMARS and missiles for F-16s. I hope that the Patriot missiles are still being supplied by United States, but it's also kind of tricky. So this ally of Ukraine is not that reliable as it used to be. Because since Donald Trump came to power, if you calculate how many of those cancellations of the Ukrainian military aid happened, well, I guess it's fourth or fifth time already. And Donald Trump is in power for less than a year. Who knows what might happen during the next 3 years? So Europe should take responsibility for Ukrainian military support almost fully if it is interested in its own defense. Norway knows about it, of course, and it's also in their country interest to support Ukraine, as I say to you. Also, they will increase the direct military help for Ukraine. Norway to allocate about 6 billion euros for Ukrainian military support the next year. Awesome. But according to the recent data, the military support could be increased even by 7 billion and even more. And that equalizes the military support coming from Norway with military support coming from Germany, the second largest Ukrainian military contributor after the United States of America. Well, now United States are not spending their money for Ukrainian military, so we may say about general support of Ukraine by European countries. But that support is obviously way lower compared to direct military funding coming from the United States of America, or which was coming under the previous White House administration. Unfortunately, without this direct support from USA, Ukrainian military is not capable that much, and what may save Ukrainian military are basically the frozen Russian assets, which could be confiscated by Europe and sent at the proper direction. It is also an investment into the European military production, which also could be used for defense of Europe itself. For example, Gripens, which are one of the best fighter jets out there, and Ukraine agreed already with Sweden to build some sort of the factory on Ukrainian territory till 2031. Well, I don't honestly think it's a good idea, because after all, Russia may use their hypersonic missiles to hit Ukrainian military facilities, so everything on territory of Ukraine is under, let's say, threat of being hit by Russians. To secure that factory, lots of the air defense systems are needed, but still it is not the full guarantee against the Russian strikes. Basically, it's very hard to intercept some of the Russian missiles, as I say to you, Kinzhals and Iskanders, which are ballistic missiles. I know what I'm talking about because Turkish Baykar factory was destroyed by Russian attack, and Turkish drone maker pledged to rebuild destroyed Ukrainian factory. But I would suggest to build it somewhere else on territory of neighboring country, like for example Romania, Poland, Baltic countries. I'm not sure about, because I'm quite concerned about those. Well, Poland, I don't think that Russia may attack Poland in the coming years. After all, Poland has a huge military, so there should be some sort of the negotiations done in this case between our Turkish partners and Polish partners. Ukraine has the good logistics with Poland in a way better than with Romania. But rebuilding it in Ukraine after it was destroyed, well, I would be concerned about it, because no air defense system in the world may guarantee 100% interception of the Russian missiles. No. So let's go back to the Norway's idea to support Ukraine. It is huge, guys. It could be definitely a game changer. As you understand, there is no Wunderwaffe in this war that alone may change the outcome, but altogether it could be a factor that may force Putin for real negotiations. Because, as I say to you, Putin is thinking that he can win this war still. Maybe in the coming months, in a couple of years, he is sure that he can be victorious. He can break through Ukrainian defense, go to main Ukrainian cities, and after all, force Ukrainian government to run and put his puppet government in Ukraine. At the same time, occupying and connecting at least half of the Ukraine to Russia. It is his dream, and he's oriented on that one. And to understand it, you just need to listen to Putin's interviews and what he says about a common nation, Russian Ukrainians, and that Ukrainians are just brainwashed Russians, they do not exist, they should be Russians, and so on. And while Putin has his power, he will try to achieve this goal because he has already started. So the only way to stop Putin in Ukraine is to physically stop his army, like completely stand still, to cause them not just to propel little by little, but not to propel at all. Even now, Ukraine is successful with its counterattacks. For example, if we speak about Dobropila direction, where Russians actually broke through Ukrainian main defense line, Ukraine had enough reinforcements to compensate that Russian breakthrough and to cut them completely, causing disastrous situation for Russia in this region. And now, even with multiple Russian attacks, they cannot return back those territories. So Ukraine still has this potential. Ukraine just needs constant military support, like significant boost. And if the Russian assets are being confiscated for Ukraine, Ukraine may obtain this boost for years and years ahead, without really influencing the European budgets. You see that agenda coming from Russian propaganda, from those pro-Russian speakers, that Europeans have to pay for Ukrainian military. Europeans have to pay for this war to continue. No, Europeans are actually paying for this war not to be on their own territory. That's what they pay for. But with the Russian money confiscated, Europeans will not have to pay any longer for at least several years, and Ukraine will obtain everything needed, including the weapons coming from the United States of America via Pearl program, where Europeans purchase those weapons for Ukraine and pay 10% extra. For some of the reason, United States, they like tariffs. Well, not all of them, of course, but Donald Trump especially. But of course, for our allies, it will take some time to agree on this Norway's guaranteed deal. Unfortunately, as in all of this bureaucratic world, they negotiate. By the time Ukrainians are losing their lives in the trenches, and as I say, to behind the front lines, civilians are losing their lives also. Kherson city is bombed constantly, as well as Donbass and other regions of Ukraine. Blackouts. So Ukraine needs immediate solution until it is too late. And only that may stop Russia. For Putin, it should be evident that his army is not successful at all in Ukraine, that it may even retreat and not take even a square meter of Ukrainian land without absolutely heavy losses. Yeah, now they have losses, but with that military support, it should be devastating really for Russia. And that is how at least we may stop this war from happening. Stopping this war is the best solution nowadays for Ukraine. Unfortunately, Ukrainian military is unable to regain control over occupied territories, Crimea. It is happening for multiple of the reasons. First of all, drone war. War has changed. There is the kill zone created, so fast movements are not possible as they were in 2022. Then Ukraine regained control over the Kharkiv region, Kherson Oblast. Now those kind of the operations are simply not possible. They require absolutely tremendous number of the forces and the crush of the defense, complete crush of defense of the enemy. So that's my response on kind of the popular question whether Ukraine is capable to return everything back. The answer is no, but it will return everything back only in case of the Russian regime collapse. As it happened to Soviet Union in 1991, I'm sure that the destiny for Russia will be the same. And if we exclude some sort of the black swan scenario as it was with Prigozhin, for example, it may take years for Russian economy to collapse. Yes, there are pretty much good chances for it to collapse sooner, but I don't see the huge stagnation and stagflation of Russia just right now. Unfortunately, it may take, as I say to you, even a decade. Well, there are some of the good news for Ukraine relative to the Russian economy and Russian military production. I'm gonna touch it probably in the next video. As well as we have some of the kaboom news coming from Russia. So bear with me, guys, subscribe for the channel, like this video to stay updated on situation in Ukraine and not only. And special thanks for my Patreon supporters and also members of the channel. Guys, you're really making this content possible. To support me, please check out the links below for my Patreon, and also you may press the button join somewhere here to join the membership. If you don't have this opportunity, just press the like to this video and also subscribe for the channel because it helps me a lot to boost this video video. Algorithms really like your communication and connection to the video, all of your comments, likes, and everything. So thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.